My name is Patrick, but you can call me 26. And what we're going to do today is we are going to build our match page, right? And our match screen is going to be our meat and potatoes, and this is what it's going to look like. And what it's basically going to do is it is going to allow us to match with the various users. And I'm going to describe exactly what it is, right? So you're going to have this image, and then there are going to be a number of images. Like you can see, there are users behind this particular user, and we have our user. You get their image, and then you get their name, their age, their profession, how far away they are. Then this button is going to allow us to go and see more information about them, right? So when you hit that button, you're going to be going to another section, and which we have not built, and see more information about them. This is it, right? And then you can also go back, and this is going to be an indicator of whether or not they're a VIP, right? So if the user that you're matching is a VIP, they're going to have this tiny crown here to like a sort of differentiator, so you know that you're matching with a VIP user. And if they're not, you're not going to see it, right? And then the next thing, of course, is going to be the swipe animation, right? So if we swipe here, you're going to see the X button that is at the very top, right? And it gets more vivid as you move the card, right? So for example, if you swipe to the left like this, it's going to get more vivid. And when you get to a certain point, it's going to be at full vividness. If you leave the card, it's going to snap back to the position it's supposed to be in. If you do the opposite, you're going to see the green button, and it's going to get more vivid, exactly like the other button, but more vivid in the opposite direction, right? And when you leave it, it's going to snap back. That is if you don't displace it past a certain particular point, right? So let's swipe this, and after that, you're going to see the card underneath, and you're going to be able to swipe that also. And the cards are going to be arranged at an angle. Of course, we're not seeing this because you're using the same image. The cards are going to be arranged at an angle so that you can see them jutting out behind, so that you can know that there are other users, right? So this allows us to swipe through. So you can swipe there and swipe here until we get to the bottom of the stack, right? So that's going to be how or what we're going to build in this section. And this is going to be the meat and potatoes of our app. And let's get to it. Now, the next thing we want to do is going to be, let's create our card view, and the card view is just going to contain the card that we're going to show on the screen, right? So let's come here, and it's going to be in our views, right? And here we're going to hit Command N, and we're going to create a card view, and this is going to be a Swift file. We hit next, and this is going to be called card view, like so. And we're going to come here. We need to import UIKIT, which includes foundation. And we can come here and we say class. This is going to be called card view, like so. And this is going to be a UI view, not a UI view controller, but a UI view, right? And what we want here is going to be the name label. So we say let name label, and name label is going to be, you remember our function, this one, like so, that we created our convenience initializer. And this is going to be the font, like so. It's going to be .system font of size and weight, like so. That's going to be 30. We want it a bit chunky, and the weight is going to be a bit heavier than everything else, so it's going to be black. The text color is going to be white, basically what you saw, and the number of lines is going to be 0, right? Wait, let me just check. Is that the default? Let's see, let's come to utils, come to extensions, and what you're going to see here is that let's just, okay, fine, number of lines is 1. Okay, that's why we're making it 0, right? So that's not the default. I was just checking that. And then we're going to have the image view, and we're going to say let image view. And what's the image view? It's going to be UI image view, like so. And we come here, and this is going to be that, like so. We're going to have this, like that. And you're going to say let IV is going to be UI image view, like so. And then we're going to say iv.content mode. Content mode is going to be .scale aspect. Is it fill or fit? It's going to be fill, like so. Then we say iv.clips to bounds, and this is going to be true, like so. And then we're going to say iv.layer.corner radius, and what's the corner radius? It's going to be 1/6, right? And we're going to return it because it expects an IV, so we return the IV, which is going to be our image view. That's done. Now the next thing is going to be, we need a profession label, a location label, Those are the two next labels that we need, right? And they're going to get smaller and progressively less bold, right? So we just say like so. We could just come here and hit Command D, right? And instead of name label here, we're going to have the location label. That's going to be the distance that the user is away from the other user, right? And then we're going to have the professional label, like so. And the professional label ideally would come before the location label. They're not all going to be the same size, and this should be location. Or you can spell it whichever way you want to spell it. Just make sure that you know it's the location label we're referring to, right? Now the professional label should have a size of 18. They get progressively smaller as you go down, but the order, I've changed the order because we were copying and we put the location before the profession, but that's how we're going to use them. That's going to be the order. Well, the order depends on how you actually put them on the screen, right? When you're configuring the UI. So it doesn't matter how you declare them up here, as long as you remember the order when you're putting them, right? So from black, the professional label, which is going to be the this should be 20 rather than 18, right? From black, it's going to be the next heaviest, which is going to be .heavy, like so, and the rest is going to be that. And then this one is going to be, instead of black, it's going to be bold, like so, and this is going to be 18, right? So that's how we do that. And the next thing is going to be the crown view. And remember, the crown view is only going to be available to our VIP users, right? So if you're a VIP, you get one of these. If you're not, you don't see one of these, right? And this is going to be just a UI image view, like so. And it's going to be that. And what it's going to be is going to be this. So we come here, say this. Okay. We could copy this, right? Copy, come here, press that. That's going to be the image view, like so, and slightly different. So we get rid of this and get rid of that. And here we're just going to say let configuration. We're going to have a configuration. We say let configuration. And what's the configuration? The configuration is going to be UI image, like so, dot symbol configuration, and this is going to have a point size. Come here, say point size, UI image dot symbol configuration, point size. I don't know why it's not, oh, we're not assigning it. Okay, fine. This is going to be that. So we come here and we say this is going to be point size and weight, and the point size here is going to be let's say 20. Weight is going to be heavy, right? It's not going to be the heaviest, but it's going to be pretty heavy, right? And then we're going to say iv dot image. What's the iv dot image? This is going to be UI image, like so, and here it's going to be system name, and we're going to use the configuration. System name is going to be crown, with configuration is going to be configuration, like so, and we're going to say iv dot tint color, and this is going to be dot white, like so, and then we're going to return it, of course, right? So that's going to be that. Then we're going to have our action button, and our action button, we're going to say let action button. Basically it's the one that you're going to use to navigate. This is going to be UI button, like so. So we have the UI button there. Come here, do this. We have done this a bunch of times now, so you can just speed through it. And we say let BT is going to be a button is going to be UI button, like so. I keep pressing plus, right? UI button, like so, and the type, it's going to be that. Then we say bt.tint color. bt.tint color, what's going to be the tint color is going to be the black, like so. Then we come here and we say bt dot background color. What's the background color? Is going to be dot white, like so. Then we come here and we say let configuration, and what is the configuration? Configuration is going to be UI image dot symbol configuration, and the point size with the weight is going to be 30, and this is going to be dot heavy, right? So we come there, do that, and we say let image, and image is going to be UI image, like so. And here we're going to have system name, and the system name is going to be let's put it to the configuration. System name is going to be info.circle, right? So you can check out what that is basically the symbol that we actually saw, right? So that's going to be that. And the width configuration, we're going to hit tab. It's going to be that, right? And then we're going to say bt.set image. What's the image? The image is going to be the particular image, like so. The control state is going to be normal or normal, like so, right? Then we need to set the size, so we say bt.set size. It's going to be 36 by 36, right? 36 by 36. You could make it bigger, could make it smaller. Need to make it round, so we say bt.layer.corner radius, and what's going to be that? 36/2. You could put that as 36/2 or just do 18, right? Do the math in your head. bt.add target self action is going to be hashtag selector. It doesn't exist yet, and this is going to be handle information. This is basically where we're going to go to see the other users' information, right? The one we're interested in, right? That's going to be touch up inside, like so. And then you're going to just come here and we say return bt, like so, right? So that's more or less done. What's the next thing we need to do? We need to put the gradient layer, then we need the noop and the dupe, right? And the self here is going to be self, like so. And what we want to do, let's put for the gradient layer, or let's first put our handle tapped, right? Let's come here and we say handle tapped, right? We could do our noop and dupe a bit later, right? We come here and we say Objective C func, and this is going to be called handle information, or whatever we called it, right? Handle information, like so. And this one is just going to be that is going to be what it says, right? Now we need to put everything on the screen, so we need our configure UI, right? Func here, it's going to be called configure UI. And what is configure UI going to do? Well, a bit too many braces there, right? Okay, we expect one more. A bit too few there, right? So we do this. What are we going to do here? We're going to add a couple of things. We're going to add the sub views. So the first thing we're going to do is come here and we say add sub view, and then we're going to say image view, and we're basically going to tell the image view to take all the space available, right? So we say image view dot fill super view, right? So fill the larger view that you have been put in, right? And then after that, we are going to put our name label, our professional label, our location label, our action button, our crown view, and the nope and the dope we can do a bit later, right? So let's do that. So let's put our various labels on the screen. Come here, say name label, like so, and this is going to be anchored. So how do we anchor it, right? We anchor it by saying the leading is going to be the leading anchor, like so. Then the bottom is going to be the image view. Remember, the image view fills the super view. Image view dot bottom anchor, like so. Then we say the padding leading is going to be 16, and padding bottom is going to be 80, right? Come here and we want the, let's just hit Command D, right? Command D. Then after the name label, we're going to have the professional label, which is going to be the next one. It's going to be professional label. The leading, or rather we need the top here, right? So maybe we might have to change this up. So we say the top is going to be the name label dot bottom anchor, right? The leading is going to be the leading 8, padding leading is going to be 16, right? Come here with the location. Okay, don't save, but Command D, and this is going to be the location label, right? Come here, say this is going to be the location label, and the anchor is going to be the profession label, like so. and this is going to be professional label, like so. This is going to be that. The leading is going to be the leading anchor. The padding at the top is going to be that. The padding leading is going to be that, right? So that's done. Next, we're going to have our action button. The action, this is going to be action button. Action button dot anchor the bottom. Okay, we need to change this up. The action button bottom is going to be the image view dot bottom anchor, like so. Trailing is going to be image view dot trailing anchor, like so. Padding bottom, padding trailing. That's done. We need the crown view, like so. Crown view anchor dot anchor, right? Crown view anchor bottom is going to be crown view anchor bottom is going to be action button dot top anchor, like so. Trailing is going to be image view dot trailing anchor, like so. Padding at the bottom, padding bottom is going to be 16, and padding trailing I think is also going to be 16, right? So we have everything we need for now to put our various buttons on the screen, right? And this is the crown view and the action button, right? Okay, I think that's everything we need for now to show something. Of course, our image, currently we don't have a particular image, but that's fine. Now the next thing we need to do is I think for now all we need to do is configure the particular, make sure that the view has a particular, we haven't called the configure UI, right? So how we call it is pretty straightforward. We come here and we say init frame, like so, and here we're just going to call the super. So they say super dot init, the frame is going to be the frame, and what we want to do here is going to be configure UI, right? That's going to be that. And I don't think there's much else we could do. Yes, we need to configure the details, right? Configure the details. Just put stuff that we can see on the screen so that when we show it, we actually show something, right? Rather than just having a blank screen. So we come here and we say configure. This is going to be configure details. And what is configure details going to be? We're going to have, let's come here and we say, we're going to have the image view dot image, and this is going to be UI image, like so. And here it's going to be, for now, named. And what is it going to be named? We don't yet have an image, so let's put our, we're going to put that in a bit. Let's just put the name label first. For now, we're going to say name label dot text. This is going to change in a bit, right? So this is going to be, since we're going to be getting the age and the name, and they're going to be separate, we're going to be doing a bit of changes as we go along, right? But for now, we're just going to say it's going to be called GL17, like so. Then we're going to have the professional label, like so, and this is going to be dot text. This is going to be architect. Then we come here and we say this is going to be location label dot text. And what is this going to be? It's going to be 15 kms away, right? And that's going to be that, and we need to call it here. So come here and we say configure details. So for now, that's all we need to do. And then afterwards, of course, it's going to complain because we are not hitting this, right? So hit this because it's required, right? So we do that. That's, I think, a lot of what we need to do. Next, we can go to our, we'll come back here in a bit, but let's go to our match controller and then figure out how we can start showing this on the screen. So the next thing we need to do is, I've included an image here, and the image is going to be the image that we're going to display. So just add to your assets an image that you need, or if you're following along from and you have access to my code, I'm going to make it available. Just copy that, right? What we're going to do next is we're going to come back to our card view, and we're going to give the image here, come to configure details. And what we want to do is we would like to say here that the image view is going to have an image, And what's the image going to be? The image is going to be a UI image like so, and this is going to be named, what's the name? It's going to be whatever it is, right? That is done, right? Now, the next thing we need to do is we would like to, what would we like to do? We would like to go to our match controller and put everything in place, right? So what we do is we come to our match controller, and in our match controller, what we want to do now is let's give it first, let's run things and see how they are, right? I believe it's red for now. And give it a second. Okay, maybe we're not showing the tab bar at the moment, but what we could do is come here and say, is it up delegate? Yeah, right. This is where we are, right? So the next thing we would want to do is we would need the, okay, give it a second. Not match controller, rather main tab bar controller, where that is going to be red, right? Now, the first thing we could start off quite simply is to have our, give it a second. Okay, that's done. But what we would want to do is we'd like to jump to definition here. And now, since we're going to be working on the match controller, right? So I believe it's this one, right? So it should be at the top of our array so that we can actually see it fast when we reload, right? It's going to save us a click or two, right? So let's do that, and now let's run it. And this is what it looks like, right? We now have everything, and the very first thing we could do is, okay, that's it, right? Now, the very first thing we could do is we could come to our extension, and I believe there's an extension here for setup nav button, right? So we did make that, and what we want to do is we want to come to our match controller, and in our match controller, what we would like to do is first we could ditch this, right? And we could come here. What do we want to do? We want to create a function. This is going to be configure nav item like so. And this is going to be if true. What does this do? If true, what this means is basically we are going to show either the navigation button, the right navigation button, or not, right? So we come here and we say let right button, and this is going to be setup nav button like so, and this is going to be crown like so, and this is going to be hashtag selector, and this is going to be handle VIP pop up like so, right? And then we're going to put it on the right, and for us to put it on the right, we need to come here and we say navigation item dot right bar button item, and this is going to be right button like so, right? And here we need to create the functionality for this, so we come here and we say at objective C func, and this is going to be called handle VIP pop up, right? Like so. And for now, what it's going to do is we're just going to print, and what are we going to print? We're going to print ABC, right? So that's going to be that. We need to call this, right? So how we call that is going to be come here, say configure nav item like so, make sure it works. We're just going to have our glorious crown. Let's wait on it, and we can see it. Okay, it's taking its sweet time, but okay, fine, right? Oh, of course, we got rid of the red, so we do get that. So let's change our view. Come here, say view dot background color, and this is just going to be UI color like so. And here we're going to have white, and the white is going to be 0.9, and the alpha is going to be 1, right? Let's do this and see it in action, hopefully. And this is what it's going to look like. Boom, that's what it looks like, right? And when we press this, we should get ABC. Okay, is that okay? We're getting ABC, right? So just hit that if you don't have access to that, right? Now we have everything we need to do. We have everything we need to have, and the next one would be let's declare where our cards are going to be, right? So the card stack, where our cards are going to be, right? So we say let card stack and spell it correctly, or if you call it static, make sure you use static, right? This is going to be a UI view like so, and then after we do the UI view, we are going to have an array of cards. So we say var cards like so, cards, and cards are going to be that is going to be that, right? So that is that, and the next thing we would need to do is we create a function where we're going to put cards on the particular card stack, right? So let's come here and we say a function, create a function, and this function is going to be called func setup cards. And what is setup cards going to do? Exactly what you think it's going to do, right? We're going to come here and we say let card is going to be a type of card view like so, and then we're going to say cards plural dot append, and we're going to have a card, and what we're going to do is we're going to say add it to the card stack. So we say card stack dot okay, before we do that, we do that, could we configure a UI so that we can see our cards, right? Maybe what we would need to do is maybe we could put our card stack on the screen, and after we put our card stack on the screen, we could see it first, and then after we see it, we would be able to know where our cards are going to look like, where our cards are going to be before we actually start setting up our cards, right? So let's come here and we say func. This one is going to be called configure UI, and it's going to do exactly what you think it is, right? Configure UI. What is configure UI going to do? It's going to do, we're going to come here and say view dot add subviews. Okay, let's do this in case we have multiple, and come here and we say this is going to be card stack, right? And the card stack is going to be card stack dot anchor, and what we're going to anchor is going to be the top is going to be view dot safe area layout guide dot top anchor. Leading is going to be view dot leading anchor. Bottom is going to be view dot safe area layout guide dot bottom anchor like so. Trailing is going to be view dot trailing anchor. Padding top is going to be 24. Padding leading is going to be 32. Padding bottom is going to be 24, and padding trailing is going to be 32, right? So we have the leading, the trailing, the top, and the bottom, right? So we have that, and we probably could call it let's come here and say configure UI. So we call that, and we could come here and we say card stack dot background color, and this is going to be dot red, right? So before this, right, before we configure our UI, this is what it looks like, right? We've gotten rid of the black, made it a bit more, give it a second for it to show up, right? So this is what it looks like. Okay, it's taking forever. Okay, this is what it looks like with the gray, the background color like so. We come here, configure UI, make our card stack red. We don't really need to make our card stack red. We're making it red so that we can see it and know where we are, right? So let's do this. Okay, so this is our card stack, right? We could get rid of the red. We don't really need that. That's done, right? So that's where our cards are going to be. And now what we would like to do is we would need to set up our cards, right? So we come here and we say card.append that. And we need to come here and we say card stack dot add subview. It's going to be card, right? and then we wanted to fill the super view. So we come here and we say card dot fill super view, right? Do that, run it, and we should get a result, presumably. Okay, we are not seeing anything, meaning we're not calling something, probably, right? So what we need to do is probably we could create, where do we do it? I'm looking at the final code. We call it in the fetch. Let's create a function called fetch users, which is going to be useful when we down the line, right? Func, this is going to be called fetch users, right? Fetch users is going to do not much. It's just going to be, we come here and we say set app cards, like so. So if we do this, what this is going to do is not going to do anything currently. We need to call it. So we say, okay, now I think we're going to see something, right? I've been saying we need to see something. Let's see if, okay, we are unable to activate a constraint. So that means that we have balled something up somewhere. So when you actually run this and you find the error of the lack of common ancestor, that means that, what that means is that they do not, you're not putting everything on the screen, right? So if you come here and you check this out, you will see that, give it a second, right? So if you come here and you see something like this, this is, does the constraint reference items in different view hierarchies? That's illegal. That basically means that if they don't have a common ancestor, you're not putting some elements on the screen. And if you check here, you can know exactly where you're not putting elements on the screen, because it says here UI label card view, right? So card view, there's a UI label in the card view that you're trying to put up that is not particularly, you have not added it to the sub view, right? So what we need to do, or what we have actually forgotten to do, is we need to put this particular subviews on the screen, right? So we could put them here. We could come here and we say add subviews, like so. And since we want to add multiple, so we could use the function that we created, and this is just going to be name. Then it's going to be professional label. Then it's going to be location label. Then it's going to be action button, and it's going to be crown view. So we do that, and if we do that and we reload, we presumably are going to get exactly what we're looking at, or we're going to get a approximation. Let's give it some time. Okay, there it is, right? So we do get a particular user, right? And you're going to see the first problem with what we have done. You see our user's name is called Jill, and this is actually Sadio Mane. He's a former Liverpool player. I think now he's in, he went to Bayern in Germany and then went to, if I'm not wrong, he's now in Saudi Arabia, right? So Sadio Mane. Now you see the problem is he's on his profile picture, he's wearing the jersey, and the jersey color and the name color are the same, right? So it's white on white, so you can't see the name. You can't see, is it architect? Is it 15 kilometers away? And I know I'm using kilometers rather than, some people would prefer miles and whatnot. You can just convert it into miles. We're going to deal with kilometers now, right? But it's easily convertible. So what we'd like to do in this case is convert this into, make it visible, right? That's what we want to do. So let's add a gradient. So let's just add a gradient at the bottom. And how we do that is we come here and we say function func, and this is going to be add black gradient. And the black gradient, what's it going to be? It's going to be, it needs an array of colors. We say let colors, like so, and colors is going to be UI color, and this is going to be, okay, come here, right? This is going to be dot clear, comma, and this is going to be dot black, right? So we have those are going to be UI colors, right? And this should be an array of colors, right? That's why it's complaining. So if we make this an array, and we can now make it an array of colors, right? And then we just have to add the locations. We want the locations to be at the bottom, so we're just going to say gradient. Let's add a gradient layer. So right, we're not creating the gradient layer, so let's add it. and then we're actually going to show it. So we could put it, declare it up here. So let's come here and say something like gradient layer, and this is going to be CA gradient layer, CA gradient layer, like so. And we do that, now we can actually use it, right? And what the gradient layer is going to have is it's just going to be the particular location. So let's come and say gradient layer dot locations, and the locations are going to be at the bottom. So we say 0.7 all the way to the end, which is going to be 1.0, like so. And the colors is going to be gradient layer dot colors, and this is going to be colors map. Hit enter, and what we would want is just come here, do that, and we could just come here and use $ notation. And what we want to do here is say $0 dot CG color, right? And what we'd like to do here is just say layer dot add sub layer, and what's the sub layer? It's going to be the gradient layer, right? So we do that, and now we can add the black gradient, and our colors are going to look a bit better. Let's add it in configure UI, right? So after I put our image, we're going to say, so that's our gradient, our names are on top of the gradient. Remember, it depends on the order that you put them in, right? So if you put the gradient below after you add the subviews, right? If you come and put this here, right? The gradient is going to be on top of them, right? So if you put the gradient here, the gradient lies between the labels and the image, right? So we want the gradient on top of the image, not on top of the labels. That's why we're putting it. So this is very important, the order that you put them, right? Or rather, let's see if we can see a difference, right? So let's come here and we see, this is what it looks like. Rather than me pontificating, I could show you exactly what I mean, right? Let's just run this, right? So this is what it looks like, right? And now you can see there's some darkness and it's a bit more visible, right? There's we've put a bit of darkness towards the end. Yeah, so let's see that. Let's come here and put it after this, right? It might not be perceptible, you might have to take photos of it, but it's pretty much okay. Okay, it's barely perceptible, but what you would want to do in such a situation is make sure that this is actually on top of the... If you make it darker, you're going to see the difference, right? So just make sure it's under the image, right? So now we have a black gradient and we can see that, right? Now, the next thing we'd want to do, or we would be interested in, is we want the ability to actually move our... We want the ability to move our image, right? So when you actually pan like this, we want to make sure that when we pan it, we can actually see our image, right? So when you move it like this, you see it moving along, right? So let's do that. Now, before we actually do that, let's make sure that we can navigate, right? So currently, when we run our app, we want when the user presses this button, we'd like to send them to the particular screen. What's the name of the screen? Forgetting the name. But we'd like when the user hits this button, instead of just saying tapped, we want to go to the user view controller, right? Which I believe we have not yet made. So how we do that is pretty straightforward, and it might be a bit difficult, but let's try and set it up first, and then I can explain what the issue that we would face and how we're going to tackle that issue, right? So let's go to card view, and currently we're saying tapped, right? So where's the functionality? Let's put this at the bottom, right? I like putting them after the other functions. No particular reason, it's just something I like doing. Let's say that when you tap this, we're going to let's create a new controller. Come here, hit Command N. This is going to be a new Swift file. This one is going to be called something like user, spell it correctly, user view spell it correctly, user view, and this is going to be called controller, like so. Come here, this is going to be UIKit, like so. Come here, say class, this is going to be like so. And come here, this is going to be view did load, called the super view did load, like so. That is done. Now what's the next thing we need to do? The next thing we need to do is we need to allow our user to navigate from that page to this particular page, right? From the card view to this particular view. How would we do that? Well, you may think that what we need to do is just come here and we say something like, let VC is going to be user view controller, like so, and then come and say navigation controller, or I'd imagine, right? Navigation controller dot push view controller, and this is going to be VC, and we're going to say animated is going to be true, right? Pretty straightforward. And it's going to complain first because it says that we can't find the navigation controller in scope, right? And the reason for this is actually that we don't have access to the navigation controller here in the UI view, right? So how would we solve this? Well, one way we could solve it is by the use of a protocol, right? Now, a protocol is quite simply, a protocol is just a blueprint for something that something should implement, or a functionality that something that conforms to the protocol should implement, right? Should have or do, right? So what we would do, let's just come here and do this, right? What we would do is we would declare a protocol, and we could declare it either up here or bottom. I like doing it at the top. Just come here and we say protocol, and this one is going to be called card delegate, like so. And this functionality is going to be called func. This is going to be called did tap handle user information. Yes, so that is going to be that. Did tap handle the user information. Now everything that conforms to did tap handle user information is supposed to, everything that conforms to the card delegate is supposed to have a function called did tap handle user information, which is a bit of a mouthful, right? So what we would do is we would come here and we say on the card view, we're just going to come here and we say something like, let's see this, right? We say var delegate, and this is going to be card delegate, like so, right? And what we're going to do in such a situation is next we would need to, aside just from saying tapped, we would need to actually do the did the did tap handle information, right? So what we do is we come here and we say, aside from printing tapped, let's just also print tapped so that we know that we're pressing it. And we're going to say here tapped, like so. Then we're going to come here and we say, what we're going to say here is just going to be delegate, like so. Delegate, and what's the delegate? The delegate is going to be did tap handle user information, which is a bit of a mouthful, right? So that is that. And then the next thing we would want to do is we would like to go back to our match controller, and in our match controller first, where's our match controller? Let's go back to our match controller. Now in our match controller, the first thing we want to do is we would like to come here and we say card delegate, right? So that is that, and you see now we are saying that this is going to be card delegate. We are not conforming to the functionality, that we're not conforming to what card delegate is supposed to have, right? So you could come here, hit this, add stubs. I'm going to put it at the bottom, or rather lower, not at the bottom, but put it somewhere lower. Did tap handle information, right? And now we can actually navigate, right? So now here we have access to the functionality of we can actually move between the pages, right? The navigation. So we say let VC is going to be that. Then we come here and we say that, and then we say dot push view controller, and this is going to be VC, and animation is always good, so we say animated true, right? So if we do this, we can now navigate to that particular page. And does the page have color, right? So we come here and we say we make it blue, and if we run this, it's gonna take its sweet time. Okay, let's hit the button. Tapped. Okay, we clearly are not doing something. So what is it that we are not doing? I think on our card controller, we're forgetting to do something, right? So on our card controller, what you're supposed to do is, are we declaring the delegate? Probably that we're missing, right? Yeah, we are declaring the delegate. The issue is that I believe when we're putting our cards on the screen, we do not tell the delegate, we do not tell it what the card delegate is, right? So on our match controller, when we're putting our cards and they're filling the super view, we need to come and say card.delegate self, right? So if you do this now, presumably, if you have done everything as it should be, you can now navigate, right? Hit this, come here, and we navigate, and we can go back, right? Hit this, come here, hit this, come here, right? So that is done, and we can actually proceed. Now, the next thing we want to do is we want to set up gesture transforms, right? Set up gestures, we'll do transforms later, right? So now we want to make sure that when you actually tap on a card, or rather pan on a card, you are able to move it. So for that, we want to come here and create a function in our match controller. Come here, say something like func, and this one is going to be called set up gestures, like so. And what do we want with the setup gestures? We would like to come here and say if let first card, that is if there's a card, right? If let first card is going to be cards dot first, like so. Then you're going to do something here, and that something is going to be, we would like to add an Objective-C function, and maybe you could come cut this, put it below this. Okay, that is done. And here we're going to say at Objective-C func, and this one is going to be called pan, and pan is going to take a gesture, and the gesture is going to be of type UI pan gesture recognizer, like so, right? And we're going to say let card, which is going to be the card, is going to be gesture dot view as, and we want it cast as card view, right? And then we want the translation, which is the distance we're going to move. This is going to be let translation. Translation is just going to be gesture dot translation in, and which view is it in? It's in the card stack, right? And we just want to get the gesture state, right? For now, we're just going to say switch gesture dot state, and these are the options. And we have possible, began, changed, ended, cancelled, failed, right? Now these are a lot, right? We could get rid of a bunch of them. So what we want is we want it begun, changed, and ended, right? So you could come here and ditch this. We don't want failed, cancelled. We want possible, no, we don't want that. And it's going to complain, and we need to come here and we say at unknown, and this is going to be default default, like so, and this is going to be break, right? So we do that, and we need 3 gestures, right? Began, changed, and ended, right? So for now, what you're going to do when it begins, what you're going to do is we're just going to come here and we're going to print. And what are we going to print? We're going to print something like began panning. That's okay. Then for now, let's just do that. Then we would like to add this particular gesture to it, and we could also print ended. So we come here and we say print when it ends, right? And while we're at it, we could come here and we print. What do we want to print? We want to print changed. So you can see what happens, right? So changed is change occurs when there is an increase in translation. Began when you begin, and end when you leave it, right? When your finger leaves the actual card, right? So what we want to do next is we would like to apply this feature to our card, right? So if we have a fast card, we just want to say fast card dot add gesture recognizer, like so, and this is going to be UI pan gesture recognizer. The target is going to be the self, like so. Action is going to be hashtag selector. Objective C method in question is going to be we need pan, and we get the gesture, like so, right? So we do that, and that is going to be that. So let's see it in, wait, do we call this functionality setup gestures? We do not call up setup gestures. And where should we call it? We probably should call it when where do we call up setup gestures? Setup gestures is something we could call when trying to think. We would like to set up gestures. Ideally, we have to create another function, right? Or unless we could do it all there, what we could do is we could come here and we say we're going to create a function. We have to, and this is going to be called set update cards, right? Update cards. What is update cards going to do? Exactly what you think it's going to do. It's going to call setup gestures, like so, right? So we get setup gestures, and what we need is to call update now, and update can be gotten by we would like to, no, we add it to this. So okay, so one way we could do it is when we are setting up our cards, we could just check if we could say, come here and we say card dot add, for now, gesture recognizer, like so, and this is going to be UI pan gesture recognizer. The target is going to be the self, like so. The action is going to be hashtag selector. The Objective C method is going to be pan gesture, like so, right? So we do that, and that is going to be that. For now, let's do that. So let's see it in action. Let's run this, and then we can see it. We can see whether or not when we move our card, we get that, right? So we should get our card, and now you see it starts with began panning, change as you're moving our finger across, and then when we remove our finger, we hit end, right? So it now works, and then at the end you get end, right? So now we can get access to when you touch the card, when you're moving your card, and when you remove your finger from the card, right? So that's basically all you need to do in order to move it out of the screen, as it were, right? So what we're going to do next is we need to calculate exactly the displacement that the user puts on the card, right? Rather than just get the card, right? So what we could do so that we can calculate whether or not to remove the card. So for that, you notice that we have a translation here. And what we would do here is we would come here and we say print, and we would like to print the X, right? So we could come here and we say we want the X displacement, right? So we say X, and this is going to be, we could use string interpolation, and what we want is going to be translation dot X, right? And maybe we could command D and make it also CY. And now when we are changing, we're going to see translation dot Y, right? And remember, this is an inverted Cartesian plane. So as you move down, the Y axis increases. As you move to the right, the X axis increases, right? So for now, let's see this, right? So if we run this, we're going to see now we have access to the translation, and that is what we're going to use to actually move the card. So let's see it in action. Okay, give it a second. So we do this, and you can see all these are positive because I was moving down and to the right, right? If I move in the opposite direction, like if I move up, you should see negative Y, right? If I move to the left, you should see negative X, right? So you see we have negative if we move to the left, positive if you move to the right, negative if you move up, positive if you move down, right? Now we have access to all that. And since we have access to all that, what we'd like to do next is we would like to, we have access to all that information. The very next thing we need to do is we need to figure out how we can use that information to either remove the card from the screen or keep it on the screen if the displacement is not enough. Also, depending on the direction of the panning, we choose whether or not you have liked the user or you have not liked them, right? So that's information that we're going to use from the transformation, right? So let's see. What we want to do next is we want to figure out how we can remove the card from the screen if the displacement is a lot. And how we do that is we come up here and we are going to add the card initial center, right? So we could have a bunch of variables, and this one is going to be var card initial center, like so, and this is going to be CG point, and then we're going to have var pan initialization, like so, and this is going to be CG point, like so, right? Now we have that, and the next one is going to be we need to figure out where we're going to use this, right? So that we can dismiss them or add them, right? So what we'd like to do is if we want the ability to remove the card from the screen, right? So what we want to do is we need to create a function which is going to remove the card from the screen, and it's going to be dependent on whether or not which direction, right, you're moving it, right? So for that, let's just create a function that does that, and the function is going to be just a usual function. So we come here and we say func. It's going to be called something like remove from screen. And what is remove from screen going to do? Exactly what you think it's going to do, right? It's going to be card, and this is going to be card view, like so. Then we're going to say positive. Positive is whether or not positive will determine which direction you move it, right? You notice that some directions are positive and others are negative, right? So let's just see that. So what you're going to have here is going to be UI view dot animate with duration, and the duration is going to be in this case 0.5. The animations, probably we need spring dumping, right? So we say with animation, and then we say delay is going to be 0, and we want using spring dumping, and using spring dumping we want something like 0.6, and we also want initial velocity. Initial velocity is going to be 0.1, right? So that is that. And what you're going to have here is we are going to say check the card center. So you come here and you say card the card dot center, like so, and we're going to check whether or not it is positive, right? And if it's positive, we're going to say CG point, and this is just the direction you're going to move it, right? So we're going to come here and we say self dot card card initial center, like so, dot x plus 1,000, right? And then the y is going to be self dot card initial center dot y plus 1,000, right? So if you are swiping it to the, in case it's positive, it's going to move the x and we increase the x and the y by 1,000, and then we do the opposite if you're moving it in the opposite direction. That is, if you are liking it, this is going to be x is going to be, so you're going to move to the right and down, right? If you're removing the card after a positive swipe, you're going to move it to the right, which is x by 1,000, and then y by 1,000. It's going to move to the right and down, right? If you're saying no to somebody, you're going to move it to the left and above, right? Which is going to be also equal. When we tilt it, you're going to see how it's going to add with that animation, right? So because of that, the card is going to be pointing in that direction, right? So this is why we're saying it's going to look good, and you're going to see that in a bit, right? So what we want to do is we would like to repeat this by saying CG point like so, and the x here, x dot self, no, it's going to be card self dot card initial center dot x, and we want to subtract 1,000 from it, and we want to do the same for the y. This is going to be self dot card initial center dot y, and we subtract 1,000 from it, right? So if you do that, that's going to be remove that by 1,000, and the next thing you'd want to do is we would come here, and on completion we want to completely remove it from the screen, right? So we come here and we say completion, and this is going to be underscore in, and we just want to come here and we say the particular card in question, we want to completely remove it from the screen, right? Otherwise it's going to remain on the screen. It's going to be on an inaccessible part of the screen, but what we want to do is remove it completely from the super view such that it can no longer be interacted with, right? Of course, if we move it 1,000 points, it's going to be off the screen unless the guy is using an iPad, but then we don't allow users to use iPads, right? But what we want to do is completely remove it from ever being interacted with, right? So at the end of this, we're going to remove it from the screen. So that's what we are removing when you complete this, moving it 1,000 pixels off the screen. So that's what we're doing in the completion. So let's try it out. No, there's still something we need to do, and then we can try it out. So where do we want to call this remove from screen? I think when the user stops panning, right? So instead of just printing end, we could come here and we say remove from screen, and the card in question is going to be the card, the positive in this question, in this case is going to be true, right? So let's try this out and see if our function works. And if we do this, presumably, so after you translate, it's going to be dismissed, right? Or that's the idea, right? Let's test it and see if it works. Give it a second. Okay, let's do this, and when we end, it's going to try and remove this, and when it does, that is going to break, right? So basically that, but we know our function is being called, right? So yeah, so we can call it, but there's a slight problem. We can't currently remove it from the screen, but that's fine. That means that our function is being called. So what we could do for now, as we fix that, is we could come here and it's complaining about that particular reason, right? So card initial center.x, let's see, let's fix it in real time. Card initial center, okay. So let's come to, I think it's in our setup cards, right? So what we want to do is in our setup cards, we should only add this if there's only one card, right? So we come here and we say if cards.count is going to be 1, this is when we're going to call this functionality, right? We're going to come here, do this, cut this, paste this, and we are going to say the card initial center is going to be the card.center. So we do that, that's going to be that. Okay, what's the next thing to do is we perhaps might want to set up, no, we don't want to set up transforms. We probably want to set up the gestures, and we can't set up the gestures. Let's stop it and try it again and see what happens, right? I'm trying to fix what the issue is. Okay, give it a second. Okay. Yes, now our card goes, right? So our card can now leave, and that's we need to check if it's the only card, and then we set the center. Then we move it based on that particular center, and this is going to be gesture recognizer, right? Currently we're moving it. Of course, it moves really, really fast, so you barely notice it. But what we could do is I think we're doing it positively, so it should go in this direction, right? Diagonally down. That is to the right and down because it's positive, right? So let's do this. So it goes like that, right? And you notice that it would do the same even if we swipe in the opposite direction. And you see now we can't interact with it because it's been removed from the super view, right? We also wouldn't be able to do it because it can't be reached, right? But now, even if we swipe on this direction, it's still going to go in the direction we expect it, right? It's still going down like this, right? What we want is that in case you swipe to the left, it moves to the left. If you swipe to the right, it moves to the right. So how do we do that? And the answer is pretty straightforward. On our translation, if you will notice on our translation, where's our translation? Our translation, we have access to the X and the Y, and you will notice that they can either be positive or negative, right? So we can use that information on determining which direction you're swiping in, right? So what we could do is, instead of just printing this, or we could still print it, right? We don't have to stop printing it. Like, printing it is not particularly detrimental to what we're trying to do. What we want to do is we want to check before we remove from the screen whether you're printing, you're moving to the right or left, right? So we say if translation dot x is greater than 0, positive, right? If you're swiping to the right, go left and down, right and down, else. Now you would think that the other option is that you are moving it. You would think that there's only two options, but there's also something we're going to be trying to do, right? So what we would do here is there's something else in the later on, right? That is going to be important to why we're checking if it's in either direction rather than just assuming that if you're not moving it positive, you're moving it negative, right? So here we could come and say something like positive. And here we're going to say, for now, we're going to say if or else if. Let's come here and say else if translation dot x is less than 0. That means it's negative. We're going to come here and we copy this and say basically the opposite of this. And this is going to be copied. Come here, paste. This is going to be print. It's going to be negative, like so. And this is going to be positive. It's going to be false, right? So let's see it. So as you're swiping, we're going to check which direction it's moving, and afterwards remove the card according to the direction, right? So let's see it. So let's do this, and we see this is positive, right? So it should go down and to the right. It does. Let's reload. Up and to the left. You see? Disappears up, right? So we know it's working the way we want. However, we'd like a situation where the translation is only applied if it's above a certain displacement, right? So for example, if you don't move beyond a certain displacement, it doesn't move the card out, right? Now even here, right? Here, even if you move it a bit, the card is removed, right? So even if we come here and we move it like, we've moved it only 10, right? The card is removed, right? Or if you move it very little in either direction, it's moved. We want a certain threshold, right? So a minimum threshold, right? So what we could do, instead of this, we should say that here instead of 0, it should be greater than 80, right? And here it should be than negative 80, right? So you need to at least move it 80. It's usually recommended 50 is the sweet spot, but I'm going to go with 80, right? So you really need to move it, right? So if you don't move it past 80, it's not going to be removed from the screen, right? So this is 17. If you can see the screen, we have 17. It's not going to move. It's going to remain. This is also going to be 51. No, y is going to be 3, so it doesn't move. Let's try and get y to negative, or x to, oh, here it's negative 91 actually. I was looking at y, it should be x. This is now great. It should move now, right? So if you use it, if it's less than 80 on the opposite direction to the left, it shouldn't move, right? So let's test it by coming here and seeing we are at 24, 28, 32, 36, 40, 50, 60, let's get to 70, okay, 73. And it remains, right? We got 73.34, right? So the card doesn't move if you're below 80, right? So that's one of the other things we could do. We stop the card from moving if, and we only move it if and only if we're above 80, right? That is done. Now, what we'd like to do is, you will notice that we only have one card, right? First, we would like the card to, as you're moving, we would like it to tilt, right? So as you're moving it, we would like it to tilt. So how we do that, let's go back to our code and let us actually tilt it as we are doing that. So, and also have multiple cards, right? So the first thing we would do is we would go to fetch users, and here it's just going to communicate with Firebase and get the information. But for now, since we have not set up Firebase, when you set up Firebase and you try writing code, it's going to take a bit of time to do stuff, right? Because it has to make the call, and every time you build it, right? Since you're going, every time you build the app, it's going to take a bit more time. So this is a bit faster. So what we want to do is we want to call setup cards 5 times, which is going to give us 5 cards, right? So if we do that, we're going to have 5 cards. But then you're going to notice that since the cards are perfectly on top of each other, it doesn't communicate to the user the other cards, right? So we have 5 cards, but each card is on top of the other. What we want to do is we want to splay the cards, move them around, spread them out so that the user can know that after I swipe this first card, there's another user beneath them, right? Because currently when they look at this card, they think that this is the only user that is there for them. Maybe they don't like this one, so they might not use your app. But if you splay the cards around, right, spread them out, right, it's going to communicate the information that there are other users behind this particular card, right? So that's one thing we want to do. However, first, we'd like to remove, essentially make the card tilt, right? So what we'd like to do is we could do this by, we want the card to essentially tilt, right? And we could do it with a function. We seem to be using functions for everything. Functions are good. So we come in and say func, this is going to be tilt. And this is going to be a view, which is going to be a UI view, like so. And this is going to have a translation. And what's the translation? The translation is going to be core graphic point, like so. And this is going to be a core CGF and core graphic affine transform, like so. And this is going to be, we want to move it. So we say, let move by is going to be CG affine transform, like so. And this is going to be translation, like so, x. And what's x? X is going to be translation.x. Y is going to be translation.y, right? So now we have the amount of movement and tilting, right? So what we want to do is, as you're moving it, we want to tilt it, right? So we want to combine transformations, right? So what we want to do next is, after the move by, we want to create something called rotation, and then we're going to concatenate this two. So we say let rotation. What's the rotation going to be? It's going to be negative that dot x divide by, and here we're just going to have view dot. These are things that are pre-calculated, right? So don't worry about it. You could of course play around with them. Like if you don't like the animation here, We have already gone over spring animations and initial velocity and have explained them. Rather than go over them repeatedly, what you could do is just pick one that you like, right? So what you want to do is come here and we say return. And what do we want? We want to return move by, and we want it rotated by the rotation, right? So now we have our fancy tilt, right? Now we can actually tilt our cards. And the question is where we would like to tilt them again, right? Where would it make sense to tilt? And we'd like to tilt them as you're swiping, right? So where would we do that? Well, we could do that when the card is being swiped, as the swipe is going on, right? So let us come, instead of just printing this, we could come here and say something like card.transform, and this is going to be self.tilt, and this is going to be, the view is going to be the card, the translation is going to be translation, right? So let's try that and see whether or not it works. It's taking its sweet time. Okay, we do this. And for some reason, we are not applying this transform. Let's just, oh, I know the reason, I know the problem. Yes, can you guess the problem? The problem is that we're only applying the gesture if there's only one card. And now we have multiple cards, we can't apply multiple gestures. So we need to fix that, another problem that we have created, right? So how we fix that is pretty straightforward. We come here and we say set up gestures, right? So if we're only applying this if the card is the first one, come here and we say for card, okay, let's just let it help us. For card in cards, right? We are going to get the gesture. So we are going to take all the gestures and remove them, right? Assuming that there are other cards that have gestures on top, right? So we remove the gestures because the gestures are not directly on the card, right? So we say let gestures is going to be card dot gesture recognizers, and if this is not there, we just have an empty array, and we say for x in, we're going to come here and we say card dot remove gesture recognizer, and what do we want? We want x, right? So we remove that, and then we only apply it on the very first card, right? So what we need next is going to be where we're going to call up setup gesture recognizers, right? So what we would want is, we would like to call setup gesture recognizers, but where do we want to call it, right? We would, every time we remove our card, we want to sort of update it and then set up gestures, right? So we need to create a function here in update cards, right? We already have it, right? So what we want to do is remove the card, the top card, say cards dot remove, or rather we're already calling setup gestures. Let's just run this. There's something that is missing in our app currently. It's still not swiping because it's not getting the gesture, right? And what we'd like to do, how do we solve that? We would come here, let's go to our setup cards, and we are putting it card, and we need to come here and we say card stack dot send subview to the back, and the view in question is going to be the card, right? We do this, and we run this, and now we can move it, right? So we can now send the sub view to the back, right? So we move the view that is stacked so that we can stack them. We send them to the back, right? And that is what is going to allow us to do it, right? But now you see the problem is, once we tilt it, but don't tilt it. Once we tilt it, you can see the card below it, right? But the problem is, once we don't tilt it past the threshold, it's not removed, right? So if we remove this, let's see, it's removed. You see first, the card below doesn't have any gesture, right? So if there are two problems currently with our app, right? Okay, let's just fix them one by one. You can move the card, right? And once you leave it, it doesn't spring back to position, right? It doesn't go back to its original position, which is what we should fix. Also, once you swipe it, the card beneath it doesn't have the gestures, right? So that's something we should fix. So let's start by making sure that the card, if you don't displace it past the required displacement, right? What we would like to do is we would like to return it to the original location, right? And for us to return it to the original location, remember we have the function that deals with identity, right? Animate with identity. What's it called? I've forgotten the name, but we made something to do with animation with identity, right? So let's see it. Give it a second. Where is it? Okay, let's just hit Command F and say animate. I know it's in the view controller. Animate to identity or something. Let's use animate with Spring, right? So animate with Spring returns it to its identity, and the identity is the position it was at the beginning, right? So we could just use that if the displacement is not enough. So at the end of it, we're going to check, right? If the displacement is not greater than 80 or it's less than this, right? So if either of this is true, you run this, right? Else, that means that the displacement is between negative 79 all the way to 79, right? So from negative 79 all the way to 79, if this is the case and it's neither of these, right? That's why we don't want it. There are essentially three options. That's why we're saying else if in this case. So if it's between negative 79 all the way to 79, what you should do is you should return it back to its original location. Now you could write the entire code UI view blah blah blah, but we have a function that does that, right? So we just come here and we say card.animate with Spring. We want with Spring, and the duration here is going to be 0.3, and the initial velocity is going to be 0.1. Spring damping is going to be 0.6, right? So let's do that and see it. Let's run this, and now okay, we come do this and it returns back as long as it's below 80. It's between negative 79 and positive 79, right? So now we come here, we are at 73, it goes back. We come here, we're at 59, negative 59, it goes back, right? But if we go above it, it goes, right? This below, the one below doesn't have it. Let's also test for the other direction so that you can know it works, right? Test both directions, right? So come here and you get to negative 76, it goes back. All the way past that, it goes, right? So now we have the ability of removing, and if the user displaces it a bit, it returns back to the original location, right? So that part is done. Okay, let's continue. Now, what is next? We do notice that our cards the cards below don't have the you swipe this, right? The cards below don't have the ability to swipe, right? It's no longer responsive. So let's take care of that. And also, we can't see the cards played out, like shown, the cards shown spread out, right? So let's do that. That's what I'm calling splaying them out. Okay, so this is going to be func. Let's come in and we say func set. We're going to do a bit of math. Setup transforms, and setup transforms is just going to look through the number of cards we have and tilt them in different ways according to the card, right? So we say for I index card in cards dot enumerated right? That's going to give us access to the index, and depending on the index, we're going to display it in a different tilt, right? So that's why we're using enumerated. We need access to both the card and the index, right? So for the first card is supposed to look directly at the user, so it's going to be absolutely straight. If I continue, right? So this doesn't affect the first card, and that's next. And we're going to come here and save our transform form like so. This is going to be CGF in transform, and we're going to have the identity, right? So we are now going to do some math, and we say if I is multiple of 2, right? You could say if I modulus 2 is equal to 0, that's also one thing you could do, right? But this is the same, right? If this is the case, the transform is going to be transform dot translated by, and this is going to be float, and what do we want? We want I, and we're going to multiply it by 4, and y is going to be 0, and then we come here and we say transform is going to be rotated by, so we say transform dot rotated by, and this is going to be CG float like so, and this is going to be double dot pi, and we want to divide it by 150. This is basically numbers you can play around until you get something you want, and we're going to multiply this by CG float, and we want I like so, right? So that's that. Else we want the opposite, and what the opposite looks like is going to be basically this, right? So we come here, copy this, or you could type it out. It's going to be exactly the same, right? Come here, paste this, and this is going to be, we would like to have this being negative, right? Just the opposite. So we say negative that, and this is going to be negative this, right? So exactly the same, but make it negative, right? And then we need to apply it to the card, right? So after this, just come here and say card dot transform is going to be the transform that we applied, right? Okay, now we have set up our transforms, right? And what we want to do is we need to figure out where we're going to call them, right? So after we update our cards and we set up our gestures, we'd like to set up our transforms, right? Where do we update our cards? I can't see it. Okay, here, right? So every time we come, we're going to clear out the cards array. So we say dot remove. When we're updating, we remove the first card. Remember, we need to remove our card off the array, right? Let me just explain. So when we are removing the card from the screen here, the card stack, the cards in the array, it's still in the array, right? So if we remove the card, the visual representation of the card from the screen, that means that that doesn't mean that our cards in our card view have been removed, right? So this is one thing we should do. We should also remove the card from the card view, because there's the card stack, which is a visual representation of the cards. When you remove the card that is the visual representation of the data, the card that is the card view is still going to be in the card, right? So I know that might sound a bit confusing, but basically we have a visual representation and then we have the data. What we're doing is we're removing the visual representation, which is the card you can see from the screen, but the data still starts with the card that has been swiped off the screen. So one thing we need to do is we also need to remove that particular card from the array, right? I've said card a lot, but that's basically it, right? So we need to come and say cards dot remove first. So that means that we have removed the card at the top of our array. That is done. Good. And then we come here and set up gestures. Then we say set up transforms, right? So that's going to be that. But I don't think this is going to be the only place you're going to call it. We're going to set up transforms when we are putting a new card also, right? So here, when we put the card, we put the delegate. We need to set up transforms. So I say set up transforms like so, right? So and we don't use X here, so it's complaining. Let's put an underscore. So let's run this and see if there's anything that we are missing. Probably missing something, right? All this animation here can be a bit heady. So let's see it, right? So we run this, and you can first see our cards are splayed out according to the order that they are. But the very first card is looking at you straight. The ones behind it are being, you can see that they're spread out, right? So let's try and swipe them. So we swipe the first card, and then we have this card, and we still can't swipe it, right? So yeah, we have splayed them out, but we still can't swipe our particular cards, right? So let's fix that. What we'd like to do is after we finish updating our removing the card from the screen, after we finish removing the first card, we need to update our cards. And if we update our cards, the ones underneath presumably will get the ability to swipe, right? That is the logic. Let's put it in action, right? We might just be saying that, but that might not be the case. So if you remove the card, we don't need to do it here. If we reach here, that means it's between -79 and 79. That means that it hasn't been removed off the screen. So what we want to do is we want to come here and we just want to say update cards, like so, right? Then we repeat the trick by coming here and saying update cards, and those two are going to make it available, right? So what we want to do next is just run this. Okay. That's done. Let's see this one. Okay, now we can swipe through, right? Good. Now you see our cards, we can swipe through our entire stack, right? So that's a good thing. We can swipe through our entire stack. Good. We're halfway done. There's still one thing we're not doing, right? So if you can remember a video, we normally have an icon on the top, either left or right of the card, right? And this icon is going to allow us to show the user, and it's going to get more vivid as the user swipes, right? So that icon is what is missing. And what we need to do is we need to go back to our card view and create our icon, right? So here's our card view. And what we want to do is we want to create the icon, right? And since the icons are going to look exactly the same, let's create one function that is going to return that particular icon, right? And then we call the function twice rather than create two different icons, right? A bit of reusability. It might seem superfluous since we're doing the same thing. Okay, it's not superfluous, right? If you want to write it twice, you can write it twice. I'm going to do it once, right? So we come here and we say like image. And like image is going to take a couple of things. It's going to take a tint color, spell it correctly, tint color. And this is going to be UI color, like so. And this is going to be image name, like so. This is going to be of type string, like so. And we're going to check whether or not it's positive, is like, which is going to be Boolean, right? We just use a flag. This is going to be a flag, and we're going to see exactly how it does, how we use it, right? What's it going to return? It's going to return this, like so. Come here. That's going to be that. And we say let IV is going to be come here, say let configuration. What's the configuration going to be? It's going to be UI image dot symbol configuration, and the weight is going to be as heavy as possible, right? So we say not bold. Bold is not even heavy. Black is the heaviest, then I believe heavy, then bold, if I'm not incorrect, right? And then we put this, we say IV dot that. This is going to be UI image, like so. And this is going to be system name with configuration, right? What's the system name? Configuration is going to be like so. And then we come here and we say IV dot tint color. And this is going to be the particular tint color, right? So it's going to either be, the positive one is going to be green, the negative one is going to be red, obviously, right? So that's going to be that. And we can put the size. So we say IV dot set size. It's going to be 44 by 44, 44 by 44. And since they need to be round, do they need to be round? Okay, wait, I'm not sure. IV dot transform. And this is going to be, so it's supposed to be slated at an angle so that when you move it, it's going to be facing the angle that you're going to be watching it, right? So this is where the is like is going to be, right? You're going to see they're going to face you as you swipe them so that they can sort of like angle the way you are moving. Like if you're moving to the left, it should angle that direction. If you're moving to the right, angle that direction, right? So what this looks like is going to be CG affine transform. And the transformation we want is going to be the rotation angle, like so. And this one is going to be dependent on is like. And this one is going to be minus dot pi, like so, divide by 8, like so. And this is going to be dot pi divide by 8, like so, right? And then we come here and we say iv dot alpha, that's going to be 0, like so. And this is just going to be return iv, right? So we do that, and that's going to be it. And now we can call this function where we want to create it so that we can, we don't have to create or call it twice, right? So just come here and we create the both of them. Let's create the both of them. Come here, say we want lazy var dupe. And what's dupe going to be? It's going to be like image. The tint color is going to be dot green. The image name is going to be heart dot circle. The is like is going to be true, right? And hit command D, and this is going to be the opposite. It's going to be nope. Like image is going to be dot red. Image name is going to be x mark. Is like, okay, let's just come here. Is like is going to be, okay, that's done. And we need to put them on the screen, right? So we need to come down here, and on our screen, what you're going to do is come here, and what do we want to do? We want the nope. So we say nope dot anchor. They're going to be both on either top left or top right, right? So this is going to be top. It's going to be image view dot top anchor, like so. Then comma, like so. Say trailing is going to be image view dot trailing, like so. And the padding at the top, padding top is going to be 8. Padding, let's see. The nope is going to be that padding trailing is going to be 8. Okay. Padding trailing is going to be 8, right? And we need to repeat the same for the dupe. So we say dupe dot anchor, like so. And the top is going to be image view dot top anchor. Then we say leading is going to be image view dot leading anchor, right? Padding at the top is going to be 8. Padding leading is going to be 8, right? That is more or less done. And what we'd like to do next is maybe, let's see, do we handle the opacity? What we'd like to do is we want to make sure that the opacity of the image, right, increases as the user swipes, right? So what we would like is as a user sort of like swipes, the opacity is going to increase or decrease, right? And we could do this. There are two ways we could do this. We could either do this here, or we could do it in the particular, what's it called? The match cell, right? The match cell. So either of those is acceptable, right? So what we could do is, I'm thinking which is more efficient, right? Image. So what we want to do is, let's do it in the match cell. I originally did it here, but it makes sense to do it in the match cell, or match controller rather, not match cell, but match controller. Okay, so what we're going to do in the match controller now is we would like to make it more vivid as the translation goes. Let's first run it and see it, right? Run and see it. Wait, are we adding it? Have we added it to the? I don't think we've added it to the proceedings, right? So let's see first. Okay, we tried adding something that is yes. So what we need to do is let's go to the card view and fix that error that we have. And here we're trying to anchor this. We have not added them, right? Come here, say nope, put a comma, dupe, put a comma, right? So now we have the nope and the dupe, nope, dupe. Okay, and now we can see them, and we run it. And what are we going to see? Okay, I'm not seeing it. I thought we add subviews, right? Nope, dupe, image view top anchor, image trailing. Okay, like image, like so. Oh, we set the alpha. We already set the alpha to 0, right? So if we actually do this, I was thinking whether we set the alpha there or in the yeah, we set the alpha to 0, right? So that's why you can't see it. So now we can see them presumably, right? Okay, so we have the X, but we do not have the. Okay, we have the X here, right? So when it goes, you're going to see it's going to be like that, right? So okay, right? And why don't we have the other one? We don't have the other one because we're misspelling circle. This is the second time we've done it, right? So let's run it and see it, and now we can see both of them, I believe. So this is what it looks like: the heart and the X, right? Both of them in beautiful circles. Brilliant. Now what we want to do is we want to go back to our match controller and make sure that from there we actually, okay, where is our match controller? Let's come to our match controller. And what we would like to do is where we're swiping our cards. Where are we swiping our cards? Okay, we are swiping our cards somewhere here, right? Okay, so we have that where we are swiping our cards, and what we'd like to do is on the pan gesture, as it's changing, we want the I think we can move this back, the alpha to being 0, right? So now when you start, it's going to have a 0 alpha, but as the translation moves, what we'd like to do is we would like to make it more vivid, right? So as you move this, it's going to become more vivid and become, just before the card goes off the screen, it's going to be at its full opacity, as red as possible or as green as possible, depending on the direction, right? So how we do that is a bit of math again, and what we want to do is we want to go back to where the X and Y coordinates are changing in the translation. And not here, but in the match controller. So come here, and where it's changing, what we want is we want to check, right, if translation dot x is positive, right, else that means it's negative. We show the other one, right? So we come here and we say card dot dupe dot alpha, and what we want is going to be, come here, say is going to be translation dot x multiplied by 2, right? Like so, right? And let's do that for dupe and noop, right? Come here. Of course, it's going to be nonsense because it's going to hit 1 a lot sooner than the translation, right? So basically what we want to do is we could come here and wrap this. What we want to do is we want to wrap this, get the absolute value, right? Divide it by the card stack dot bounds dot mid x, right? And do it for the positive, that's the dupe. Do it for the negative, that's the noop. So change this. And I believe there's going to be a problem, but I'm going to show you. So what we do is we see this, right? and it's taking forever. Okay, so you can see our card, and we let it go back, and it doesn't disappear, right? Okay. And the thing that you're going to notice is that we're only getting one, right? When it's moving positive, right? So what we should do here, or you could do it for both. You could come here and say absolute, right? If you want to see the value, right? The absolute value. So don't just check the positive one, right? So that's some bit more math you could do. And now when you do this, you're going to see this. And when you come here and you do this, you're going to see this. Now you see the problem that we have. We actually have both. When it returns back to its original location, the identity, it's going to have both of them, but you do not want that. You only want one. So none actually when it gets back to location, right? So we need to remove both of them from the screen and make sure that when you return it, the other one is set to 0. So we could do that. Okay, let's continue. Now, the next thing we need to do is to figure out how we can do this, right? So though it doesn't make sense to put the absolute value here, I'm just going to put it, right? Because if the translation is of x is greater than 0, that means the value will always be positive, and this will work out, right? I'm just going to put it because I can't think of where this would be negative, but let's just put it there. I'm just going to leave it like that, right? And so that we don't have while the dope is on the screen, we don't want the nope to have an alpha. We are going to come here and we say card, because in case the user dithers on a user, right? So you swipe to the right, then you think about it, then you swipe to the left, you don't display it as you're thinking about whether or not you're swiping on the user, right? So what we want to do is just come here and we say card.nope.alpha. This is going to be set to 0, right? So while the dope is on the screen, the nope will always be 0, right? Repeat the process, right? Copy. Card.nope. This should be dope, the opposite, right? Dope.alpha. Okay, let's see it. I think there's still one more problem. So you see it, right? And when it returns, it remains here. But when this comes up, it remains there. So how do we get rid of this? Now, if you look at all this code, you should be able to get rid of this, right? From what we have explained, it should be pretty easy to get rid of it. When it returns to the end state, the alpha value remains. So that's where we should correct it. So you should try it. I'm going to give you 5 seconds to try and do it. So I'm going to say 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, right? How you fix that is pretty straightforward. You come to the end state and you just set them to 0, right? So if it's not displaced off the screen, you should just come here and you say card going to be 0. Hit Command D, make it nope. Reload. And now, is there anything else that is left? Not sure, but let's see. Okay, we displaced it too much. Let's go back. Let's run it back. Oh, we could also swipe the next one, right? So let's see it. It goes back, it disappears. Goes back, it disappears. And our stack is finished, right? So as you can see, we have a lot of what we are looking at, or we are looking for, right? A lot of it is done, and essentially basically everything we need to do, the heavy lifting of moving the card on the screen, moving it out and whatnot, right? And yeah, so that's basically that. And I think we can call it, let me just check my notes. Is there anything that we have not done? For now, I could say that we have done basically everything. Let's just look at the setup cards. What's the setup cards? Okay. Basically, we set up the delegate, we set up the transforms. I believe we did that. I think we have everything done, right? For this section, right? We're still going to come back here. There's still a lot more code, a lot of code we have not written in this page, because we need to check whether or not a user is, if you're a VIP, you have unlimited swipes. If you're not a VIP, you don't have unlimited swipes, and so on and so forth. So we're going to check all that and sort it out, right? So let's see you in the next video.